Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're tracing a biological mystery back billions of years. We're looking at a system so fundamental to life on Earth that, honestly, we rarely stop to ask how or why it actually got here in the first place. Okay, let's dive into this. So, why did nature settle on a two-sex system? When you look around the natural world, the existence of male and female just seems like an absolute given, right? It's the basic architecture of pretty much all the animals and plants we interact with every single day. But to truly understand why this binary system of biological sex exists at all, we've got to rewind the clock. We need to look back billions of years to see how early life actually solved some massive, literally species-threatening evolutionary problems in those ancient oceans.
Picture the Earth billions of years ago. The earliest life forms? Well, they didn't mate. They essentially just cloned themselves. This is asexual reproduction. It basically works like a single microscopic cell splitting right down the middle into two perfectly identical pieces. Now, on one hand, this is incredibly fast. It's highly efficient. You don't have to spend precious energy hunting for a mate, which, sounds great on a Friday night, but it has one catastrophic flaw. Because every single clone is genetically identical, they all share the exact same weaknesses. So if a brand new virus emerges, or if there is a sudden dramatic shift in ocean temperature, that single threat could wipe out an entire global population in one fell swoop. Why? Simply because none of them have the unique genetic defenses needed to survive it.
And this brilliantly illustrates the massive evolutionary leap that life had to take to survive in the long run. On one hand, you've got that asexual strategy. Super fast and efficient, sure, but it endlessly produces identical clones with identical vulnerabilities. On the other hand, you have nature's ultimate solution, which is mixing DNA. By combining the genetic material from two different parents, nature guarantees that every single offspring is completely unique. This genetic variety acts like an incredible evolutionary shield. It ensures that when new diseases arrive or when the environment abruptly changes, at least some individuals will naturally possess the randomized traits needed to adapt, survive, and keep the whole species evolving forward. So, life figured out it needed to mix DNA, but to actually pull that off, organisms had to produce specialized sex cells, which we call gametes. Now, at first, these sex cells were actually all the exact same size. They just sort of bump into each other in the ocean. But over vast stretches of evolutionary time, nature realized by making everything exactly the same just wasn't the most resilient way to survive. A strict division of labor was actually far more efficient. And this brings us to a major turning point in biological history, a concept known as anisogamy. Anisogamy is basically the evolutionary strategy of producing completely unequal sex cells to create a highly efficient, specialized division of labor. Let's break down exactly how that labor was divided. Now, what's really interesting about this is how beautifully nature developed two distinctly brilliant strategies to make the whole system work. The first is a quality strategy, what we classify biologically as female. This involves a parent producing large, nutrient-rich, and mostly stationary cells, the eggs. These take a tremendous amount of energy and time to create. It's a massive biological investment, but it gives the future embryo a huge head start with plenty of food and protection. In stark contrast, we have the quantity strategy, which we classify as male. This parent produces tiny, stripped-down, highly mobile cells, sperm. Because they require very little energy to make, they can be produced by the millions. They are essentially biological torpedoes, specifically designed to be highly mobile to go out and seek that high-value egg. Which brings us to a surprisingly simple number, 2. Why just two sexes? Well, mathematically and biologically speaking, balancing these two highly distinct, specialized roles works absolutely perfectly. You get this perfect equilibrium between the high biological investment of the egg and the extreme mobility of the sperm. If you were to try and introduce a third or fourth biological sex into this equation, it actually doesn't provide any extra evolutionary advantage. In fact, it just makes the process of finding a compatible mate unnecessarily complicated. I mean, imagine trying to coordinate a successful match on a dating app where you needed 3 specific biological gametes to align perfectly. No way. Nature heavily favors efficiency, and the two-sex system became the ultimate biological optimization for the vast majority of complex life. But of course, just as soon as we establish a hard and fast rule, nature absolutely loves to come along and break it. While the two-sex system of male and female is definitely the most common blueprint for plants and animals on Earth, the biological world is completely full of bizarre, fascinating exceptions. And these exceptions prove that life is endlessly adaptable and never ever confined to just one single way of doing things.
These rule breakers are endlessly fascinating. Take hermaphrodites, for example, like certain species of snails and earthworms. They possess both male and female reproductive organs at the exact same time. This completely bypasses the need to find a specialized partner. Literally, whoever they meet, they can reproduce with. Then you have sequential hermaphrodites, like clownfish. Clownfish have the astonishing ability to completely change their biological sex from male to female, based entirely on the social hierarchy of their group. If the dominant female disappears, the most dominant male will physically transition into a female to take her place. It's incredible. And if you really want to stretch your understanding of reproduction, just look at fungi. Some fungi don't use sperm and eggs at all. Instead, they have thousands of different mating types that can fuse together to share DNA. It really just shows how wonderfully diverse life can be outside standard biological mechanics.
So, let's move to and see how this builds into our own modern lives. We've spent time looking at the animal kingdom, at simple cell division and those hardwired biological rules of reproduction. But when it comes to human beings, the conversation gets profoundly more complex. We are stepping out from the raw mechanics of biology and into the incredibly nuanced, culturally rich world of human society. The crucial point here is understanding the clear distinction between two very different concepts. First, we have biological sex, which fundamentally refers to the mechanics of reproduction. It's generally categorized as male and female based on chromosomes, anatomy, and those specialized gametes we just talked about, though it is very important to note that natural intersex variations absolutely do exist. But then, on the other hand, we have human gender. Gender is a much broader concept that humans build on top of that underlying biology. It includes personal identity, outward expression, social roles, cultural expectations, and deep psychological factors. So while biological sex is about the physical mechanics of how reproduction works, gender is really about the complex social and personal reality of how people experience and express themselves in the human world. And that leads us to our final takeaway. Because human brains and the societies we build are so incredibly complex, our experiences naturally vary widely across different cultures and individuals. Human identity extends well beyond the strict biological mechanics of reproduction. We've journeyed all the way from single cells blindly splitting in the ancient oceans to a species capable of creating rich, diverse cultures and deeply personal identities. Which leaves us with a pretty fascinating question to ponder. As our societies continue to evolve, how will our understanding of who we are continue to outgrow the ancient biological blueprints we started with? Thank you for exploring this explainer with me today, and keep questioning the fascinating world around you.
Don't forget to like and subscribe.